We've actually peaked, y'all. The Pokemon card hobby is officially cooked, and right now is probably the best time to sell your collections. And if you run a small or medium-sized Pokemon card business, you need to be very cautious about the next couple steps that you take in a market like this. My name is Matt with RARTCG. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like this type of content, business content, market content, a little bit of drama content kind of sprinkled in, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, let me know your thoughts about the current state of the market and your Pokemon card business down below. Even if you have a totally different take, and even if you totally disagree with what I'm saying, I would still love to hear from you and learn from you. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Why do I think the Pokemon card market has peaked? Well, honestly, it's because of the current state of prices and the corrections happening in the market. I'm a big fan of what Rudy recently said in one of his videos. He said that a market correction isn't necessarily a sign or an indicator that we're going to see a market crash. I do believe that we're heading into a softer period in the market, but that by no means means that I think that the market's going to crash to zero. But what I do think is that for a lot of these modern sets, I'm talking Surging Sparks, I'm talking even something like Prismatic Evolutions, I think a lot of these more modern sets have hit their peaks. I do not think we're going to see Surging Sparks surge back up and meet new heights anytime soon. I think that it's going to take some actual time in the market and for us to get further and further from Surging Sparks release date, for us to start seeing price corrections on the upside, for us to actually get back to all-time highs for some of these newer sets. Especially the newer you get, like if we're talking Mega Evolutions, Phantasmal Flames, even something like Destined Rivals, I think that we're going to see a lot more product printed for these sets in the coming months. And so the amount of time it's going to take us back to like all-time highs for these sets is just going to be delayed. It's actually more of a normal kind of market situation. And in that way, I think it's extremely helpful. But in the short term, what this means is that a lot of these products that people are holding on to are likely going to continue to correct on the downside before they start going up again. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. You guys could be calling Pokemon's bluff, and they may not be printing any other product than what we see right now. But I think the odds of that are extremely low. I'm not guaranteeing that my thought and my approach here is correct, but I really do think that we've hit the peak for a lot of these modern sets, especially since the boom has started. Now, if you're talking about kind of the older kind of front half of the SV era, then I think that those sets are relatively safe. And again, I'm not the first person to say this. This is a commonly said thing on the internet. If you're holding on to something like Obsidian Flames, SV Base, Paldea Evolved, even something like Temporal Forces, chances are those sets are a lot safer to have in your collection for a long-term hold if you want to preserve your earnings and everything, than something like a Surging Spark, something like a Mega Evolutions and things like that. I think that this is good for the hobby. First of all, before we jump really into the meat and potatoes of this video, I think this is normal. I think this is good. Prices are still extremely elevated right now. So by no means would I think that anybody could call this a quote unquote bear market or a crashed market. This is simply a cooled off market or a market that's experiencing corrections. But I do think that the potential upside versus the potential downside is a lot different. The scale is a lot weighed heavier towards the bear side right now than it is towards the bull side. The bull case would be that we're going to see a resurge in the market. We're going to get back to all-time highs, continue to rise from there, especially the 30th anniversary coming. I totally understand and I kind of sympathize with that viewpoint a little bit, because I do think the 30th anniversary is going to make a splash. But is it going to make the entire market resurge? Are we going to yet again see Pokemon struggle like they have in the past? It's possible, but I think it's unlikely. I think that Pokemon has issued and deployed different strategies to reprint sets, and it's clearly working for some of these older sets like Surging Sparks. It's clearly working for Prismatic Evolutions. Now, I know everyone's saying, but can they maintain this level of printing? And if they put their foot off the gas even a little bit, these sets are going to rise back up in price. That's all possible, but I just want to share my perspective on this. I think that we really have peaked for some of these products. Remember, this video is all about how to crash proof your business, crash proof your collection. And here I'm going to talk to the collectors in the audience real fast. Some of you have businesses and you have investments, collections and stuff like that you're holding on to. For those of you in this kind of video right now watching, if you are collecting, if you have a sealed collection, an investment in your closet, somewhere in your home, something like that, storage unit, I want you guys to know that probably the best thing that you could do is to forget that exists. Leave it in your collection. Leave it in your investment inventory so that it can have time to reappreciate and to hit all-time highs. Because the growth that we've seen in Scarlet and Violet in the short term will not match. I think the future growth of those potential sets could have the potential to eclipse what we've seen. I think there's a lot more potential growth in those sets, although I could see a case where someone says, oh no, it's already been priced in for the next 5 years. So you have to ask yourself, you have to weigh the risks, the pros and the cons. You have to figure out, what do you think is more likely in the hobby? Has something like Surging Sparks already been priced in for the next 4 to 5 years? If you guys can hear that train, that's awesome. I'm not sure that will come through though. Or have what we've seen so far in Scarlet and Violet only been the beginning? Could Surging Sparks be a $1,500 to $2,000 box in the next 3 to 5 years? Really, only time will tell. Anybody that gives you a guaranteed, definite answer is talking out their ears, okay? They really don't know what they're talking about. So if you want to crash proof your investments in your collection, leave it in your collection, okay? I'm gonna be honest, that's all you gotta do. All you gotta do is just leave it in the collection. Let it kind of sit there, forget about it, let it appreciate over time, and you'll be good to go, y'all. The next thing I really wanna talk about is really for the business side of things. Actually, before we get there, if you have taken out a ton of leverage in order to accumulate products and to build your inventory, then you might actually, if you are in debt and you have a credit card payment coming up soon, then right now may actually be the best time to sell. I memed on that in the intro, but I actually do mean that. If you are in any kind of financial hardship over Pokemon and cardboard kind of pieces of cardboard, then right now, as the market has semi-corrected, I think the downside potential of this market is a lot higher than the upside. Meaning, I think that we could see further corrections before we see any kind of upturn. And you just need to be very cautious and very strategic with what you're doing. And I don't know your situation, but I just really care for you. And if that's you, you need to really critically think and analyze how much of your collection do you need to sell in order to get out of the predicament that you may be in. I don't know your situation. We're all adults here. All of us can spend our money however we want to. You can leverage debt and things like that however you want to. I personally don't do that, and I would personally recommend against it, which is why I always put these kind of statements in my videos. Okay, let's go ahead and turn to the business side of things. So if you're running a business, the best way that you can crash proof your business is by continuing to buy and sell. This is the primary goal of all businesses. We want to accumulate inventory, sell it, refresh the inventory, and continue to roll over profits and to grow our bottom line. So if you have this situation where you buy and sell collections and you kind of sell through your collection fairly quickly, then you're probably in a good spot to accommodate any sort of turn in the market. Now, one thing you need to keep in mind is as the market potentially continues to correct on the downside, you may want to have more cash on hand. We may want to be more liquid in terms of how much capital you have on hand, because there's going to be a lot of opportunities that open up to you. In fact, you hear a lot of YouTubers and especially YouTubers that are business guys, they're already talking about the increased buying opportunities that they have right now. And that's a real thing. You also hear on the flip side that there has been a slowdown in terms of sell through. Now, I can't speak for like vendors. I don't know how like conference attendance and things like that is going, but I can tell you from an online like TCG Player seller, I have over 3,000 sales on TCG Player. I have my own website. I run a rip and ship, and I can tell you that sales volume has slowed down. Things are still extremely strong. So by no means am I saying that like things are just like totally gone. But what I'm saying is that there's been a noticeable slowdown, and there's also been an incline to the opportunities to buy collections and buy products. So you as a business owner, what I would recommend is that you sell your inventory or maybe really push some inventory out so that you can get some of that capital freed up and be on the lookout for some really great deals. Because up until the last month or so, people have not been able or willing to sell their sealed product for like less than 85% of market. And that was in a situation where things were always going up. But in a normal situation, I would say that you can typically buy sealed products outside of a live vendor setting for anywhere between like it depends on what it is, 65 to 75%, 60 to 70%, whatever that looks like for you and whatever makes sense. Just remember at the end of the day, you have to be able to make your profit margin on that. So that's going to dictate where your buy price is versus someone like me. So be ready to buy is one way that you can help crash proof your business. Also, the first point I made is to continue buying and selling for all the way down and all the way up. Remember, resellers and businesses, we buy and sell no matter where the market's at, because we are buying at a percentage of market, turning and selling that for our profit margin, whatever that may be. Another way that you can crash proof your business is by do a quick overview of your inventory. For some of you, this is going to be super easy. Maybe you're a smaller business with not a lot of inventory on hand, but some of you guys have medium to large size businesses. And especially if you're a rip and shipper and you have active like pack inventory, it can be really, I think that pack inventory can really be impacted by something like this. And so you may want to look at some of the pack inventory that you have. I think Dan from Catch 'em All Collectibles actually talked about this, how he's actually in the business of like kind of wholesaling English packs right now. And he made the statement of like, yes, he's sitting on a ton of packs, but even wholesaling them, selling them in bulk or whatever you want to call it, he's still making a decent margin on selling packs in bulk. He's also freeing up capital and making sure that he's ready for anything that the market decides to do. I am not a large rip and shipper, so that's why I kind of refer to like Dan's recent story there, because I can only speak to things that I actually have experience to. But I really think that that approach by Dan from Catch 'em All Collectibles is very wise, and I can totally see why that would be beneficial in the current state of the market. So that's another thing, is maybe if you have some things in your inventory that you really do need to kind of get off of. You need to sell that stuff so that you can have more capital on hand. Because ultimately, if you've made some speculative buys for your inventory, thinking that the market was only going to go up, and you locked up a lot of capital in something like Prismatic Evolution buys and things like that, you may want to reevaluate some of those purchases depending on what your capital is. If you have an abundance of capital, if you have abundance of cash, then having 2 cases of Prismatic ETBs or booster bundles in your inventory, and you're going to sit on them for a couple years, that's not a problem. You know what I mean? But if you have very little capital and you deployed like a large percentage of your working capital towards a speculative buy like that, then that's dangerous, because you will have that large percentage of your capital tied up for a long time. And if something comes up where you absolutely need cash, then you're going to be forced to sell maybe at a loss in order to free up that capital. Not to mention all of the all of the unseen kind of risks and costs associated with locked up capital, which is, we're talking about all the collections and products that you can't buy because you've had that in your closet now in the form of like booster bundle cases and stuff like that. So just be careful about that. Another thing that you want to be careful for is buying and selling Japanese products. I actually had a really great conversation on my live stream with TJ PokePaster We were talking about the kind of Japanese market right now. There is a situation with the current state of the tariffs where buying from Japan, buying from suppliers and wholesalers actually is more expensive than what the current market price is. And I think that's really because a lot of people are kind of still selling and churning through product that they got before the new tariff laws went into place. And so they're able to sell less than what they can currently buy for. This is a temporary thing if tariffs holds. That's a really big thing. So we will see price corrections on the upside of Japanese, which we're already starting to see slowly and incrementally. This is just normal because a lot of sellers may be sitting on a lot of supply that they bought at X price. They're making their margin on it now. And then as things turn out, they'll have to re-up on inventory at a higher price, and then the market price rises. You just need to be careful as a business to not again, you do not want to deploy a large percentage of your capital towards something like Japanese Pokemon cards right now, where that market's extremely volatile as it is. If you don't feel confident in your ability to sell through that product quickly in order to lock in profits, you just need to proceed with caution is what I'm saying. I love Japanese products. It's a large part of my website traffic, and business is a large part of my rip and ship and things like that. It's absolutely a phenomenal opportunity for businesses, but if you do not proceed with caution, you could make some big major mistakes, and I would just hate to see that for you. So be very careful. To start wrapping up this video though, y'all, I think that whether the market is an all-time highs bull running, if it's more cooled down, corrections are happening like we are right now, or even if it's a bear market, the opportunities for you as a collector or you as a business are endless, especially for businesses. Businesses should not fear a downturn in the market because that ultimately means that there's more opportunity. Also, just the natural state of being a human being, there's a lot of fear associated with the current state of things, especially as people have felt so confident in things like their collector app or their shiny app, and seeing that number go up and up and up to the right. Whenever there is a correction, like a 10, 15, 20% correction, that can really hit people, and it can cause people to do irrational things. It can cause people to respond emotionally when they shouldn't. So all of those things combine together to make this huge opportunity for businesses and for collectors. If you are a collector and you've been sitting on the sidelines saying, hey, I just don't want to participate in the hobby at these prices, but you've been saving your money, you have I think about this person all the time. I don't know if this person's out there. Let me know if this is you. But if you set aside a monthly amount to spend on your hobbies, like Pokemon cards and different things like that, and you decided to wait in this hobby, you've just been accumulating that cash over time, well, you may be at a situation now where you're looking at some of the prices and saying, wow, I feel a lot better about jumping into Prismatic Evolutions at $8 to $9 a pack. Way better. I feel way better about that than buying at $15 a pack, And then when that price dips to 6 or 7 or 7.5, per pack, you may really be interested in picking up some sealed products, maybe ripping some packs, looking for some cards for your binder. It's a really exciting time for collectors, I think. I think there's a lot of collectors that have maybe bought at the top of the market, and a lot of those people probably feel burned right now. They probably feel confused, maybe a little bit frustrated, and I think that totally makes sense. And my heart goes out to those people, but that's part of it. And I hope that if you bought in this market and you love the cards that you have and you're truly a collector, then I don't think you had fun. You know what I mean? You chose to spend your money on something that you enjoy, you have something that you enjoy, that's great. But if you're truly a speculative investor type or investor bro, and you only bought into Pokemon because you saw all the hype in the YouTube space or online space, and you're now frustrated that what you spent your money on is declining in value, I would just before you make an irrational or emotional decision to sell all of that or to open all of that product, I would really think about it critically, because the truth is that Pokemon historically has always gone up over time. So if you can set that product aside and forget about it, you are going to win in the long term. but you have to be willing to let it sit there, not open it, and forget about it. But you can win. So have we hit the peak? Have we topped out on the market? I personally think we have for a lot of different products and sets. I think that's exciting though. But honestly, I think we like something like 151, we haven't hit the peak yet. Like we don't know what 151 is capable of, but we're about to see some really exciting things in the next year or two. I'm so excited to see what 151 does. I'm not sitting on heavy bags of 151. I've got literally one normal ETB, a couple booster bundles, you know what I mean? I've got a handful of products. I have a master set that I ripped a ton of product to get and I absolutely love it. But 151 is a very dear set to me and I'm excited to see how far it can go. Thank you all so much for watching. Oh my gosh, I meant to mention this earlier in the video, but on my stream on Saturday, this last weekend, I got raided by Cool Trainer Ryan, like the actual Cool Trainer Ryan. So I'm gonna throw up a little clip of him right here.
Rawr, TCG.
This absolutely blew my mind. It was so much fun. Cool Trainer Ryan, PokeRev, Pokeball, all these guys are absolute legends in the space. I love all their content. And so this was so exciting. Ryan's community was so nice. They're a little bit wild, but I really loved it. It was so cool. It was so good. So I'm extremely eternally grateful for that opportunity to connect with Ryan's audience and to really get to chat with them. So anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts and comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate you guys. Peace.